Poder aprender, el podcast que te ayuda a aprender idiomas, hobbies y skills de manera más efectiva. Acá hablamos sobre hábitos de aprendizaje, práctica deliberada y estrategias para aprender mejor. Mi nombre es Walter Freiberg y te invito a desarrollar tu poder de aprender para alcanzar tus metas personales y profesionales.
There's a phrase that says, the end justifies the means. I prefer a slightly different version. It goes like this. Once we set a good goal, the means have to be good as well. It's easy to get obsessed with goals, getting the promotion, building the habit, fixing the problem. But if the way we get there is out of alignment, we often lose something more important along the way. Growth that's rushed, forced, or out of sync with our values rarely lasts. What's the cost of chasing outcomes without integrity? How can we use learning itself as a space to practice the kind of life we want to live? And what does it look like when our goals are guided by presence instead of pressure? These are some of the questions we explore in episode number 93 of Poder Aprender. When we set learning goals, learning a new skill, building a habit, improving a skill, changing some sort of behavior, sometimes we forget about the how we want to approach the process. The way we practice, the energy we bring, the mindset we are holding in those moments, that reveals a lot about our values. And it also can be a reflection of who we are and who we want to be. There are so many ways of going about learning something or getting better at something. We can bring our whole self into that. And that includes our values, what's important to us, our inner compass in all these efforts that we are bringing to do something in a specific way. For that reason, when we are learning, it's not that we are learning without values or without specific ways or an internal context. For example, let's say that you set the goal of waking up earlier. You want to create more space in your day. You want to feel more relaxed. You don't want to feel rushed. You set that goal and start practicing that. You get up very early. And instead of using that time to foster relaxation and to become a more calm and intentional person, you use that time early in the morning to scroll through social media, or maybe go to news websites, check the news, and do different activities that put you in a very reactive, anxious, and stressful state of mind. You would have accomplished your goal of getting up early, but the cost would be very high. So here's an example where the how and the why, the reason you wanted to do that, are drifting apart. It's about having both and realigning them. If you're after presence, clarity, peace of mind, that would be something important to keep in mind as you are thinking of this goal. It's not just waking up or getting up early for the sake of getting up early. There's something broader to this goal in the context of your life. That specific thing has a place in the big scheme of things. And depending on the place where you're coming from, you are going to embody some of that. So when you think of specific goal, you can also take into account what type of person you want to be doing that and practicing that learning. And that might be a different way of saying, this is how you bring your values into the learning and into the practice process, whatever the goal might be. Talking about practice, not all practice is equal. There's the concept of integrity also in effort, and there are different types of effort, there are different types of practice. Effort alone isn't enough. We want an aligned effort with the type of practice that we are developing. Typically, we are told that persistence is something important and it's good, and consistency, and that we have to try hard and push through. Sometimes effort is not so useful. It depends on the type of effort, the type of action, how we are directing that action. And you can put a lot of hours of practice, or you can reflect a lot and still be practicing unhelpful habits or thoughts, ways of thinking. What's most important here is the quality and the intention behind your efforts. I will give you an example with meditation. I first started practicing meditation in 2013, and I've been to this Vipassana retreat, Goenka 10-day silent retreat. Since then, I continue practicing meditation at home and retreats, monasteries, different places. And I can tell you that not all the time that I've been sitting on a staff for a meditation cushion, I've been doing productive practice. I am well aware of that. And lately, when I've organized my self retreats, when I was taking more extended periods of time for practicing meditation and deepening my practice, I knew that it wasn't all about the hours, even though they help. It's about like the concentration or the focus or the attention that I bring to those hours. So the goal is not to sit as many hours as I can or try to mimic the schedule of this meditation center or that meditation retreat. I know that I can be sitting, practicing distraction, fantasizing about my future instead of doing the meditation practice. It's about being honest with ourselves. Is 15 minutes going to be a good amount of time that we can remain focused and concentrated in something? Sometimes we tell ourselves, okay, I don't want to do less than an hour. I don't want to do less than 2 hours or 3 hours a week. And maybe even though that might be worthwhile time duration for the practice, maybe it's not sustainable. It's not something that we can start with. We end up being in this place where we tell ourselves that we should be practicing this much time, and then we find ways of rendering that ineffective because it feels too much for where we are right now. I think that it's useful to be very intentional with the quality of our practice. And sometimes it can be better to do less and with more attention and more focus. I've seen this in language learning practice, meditation, so many life areas. It's not all about quantity and pushing through and effort, but it's also about the intention and the quality behind that. When we set a goal, we also have a specific view in mind and we have an idea of how we could get there. We'd like it to be short, preferably, and we are looking for shortcuts. Sometimes we end up compromising our views or adopting views that are not so healthy. We might get influenced by what those around us are doing or what we see in our communities, social media, on the internet, on the news, anywhere. And we think that also we should be displaying, we should be sharing, we should be making what we're doing visible. Also, that might make us set unrealistic expectations for ourselves. We believe that we should be doing this in a certain way because that's the information that we have around and that's what we see others doing. Or there might be an easier way, there might be a shorter path. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with trying to do things in less time. And sometimes we get obsessed with that or we become fixated with the idea of being efficient. Even in the world of self-improvement, there's seems to be always a more efficient way, a more productive way, a more perfect way of doing specific things. And sometimes it's about having an honest view and being willing not to cut corners to get where we want to go. That might imply considering means that maybe take more time. It all depends where we are going. Regardless of what we are doing, real progress usually starts slow, and what it requires from us is patience, being self-aware, and sometimes being willing to do less and with more intention. It's about being willing to do less, but better. The potential problem with looking for shortcuts is that maybe when we are looking for intensity and trying to get a lot done in a very short period of time, we might end up compromising sustainability. Let's say you get into a very difficult, exhausting 30-day challenge that's very extreme and where you have not much rest. Maybe it feels very productive and maybe you crash in the middle or at the end of that. That wouldn't be very much of service to you. I mean, for your future self, for what you want to create long term. If your goal is to get something in 30 days and you are not interested in sustaining that over time, maybe that works for you. Sometimes longer periods of time tend to be better to maintain the changes and the transformations that we're looking for. And there are different ways of doing these 30-day challenges. We can make them more or less kind to ourselves, to our body, to our minds. And so that's something to keep in mind. I believe that good means are good preparation for better ends. In fact, the way that you are practicing shapes what you'll be able to handle later, what you will be able to do, and how you are going to respond to future challenges. We underestimate the power of small actions and what that will enable for us in the future. Like, what's the bigger version of that? At the end of the day, even when practicing and doing things as a small action or small habits, you are working your way there bit by bit, transforming certain habits or patterns that is building you up for the future. For example, let's think of a person who has anger outbursts, who feels like saying what they want to say, and sometimes can be hurtful for other people. They want to get better at not saying that out loud right away. And even though they want to say something and they feel the emotion, they would like to maybe be able to keep that to themselves. And if it starts with, I'm able to delay that reaction by 1 second or 3 seconds, that doesn't seem like progress to many people. That doesn't seem much. Or maybe when they are able to not say a hurtful thing just once, but then the rest of the day or during the rest of a conversation, they keep saying hurtful things to others. That might not sound like progress, or that's like they are still doing it. And I think that it counts and that goes in the right direction. It's preparation for something better. It's not the end yet, and it's a good intention. And that's something that is leading to where they want to be, where they are able to say less and less of this type of things. Or with exercise, let's say a person would like to walk on the treadmill 30 minutes a day, and right now they're not able to for multiple reasons. They try starting with 3 minutes, and that's something they can do. And then the next day they do 4 minutes and then 5 minutes. I know someone who recently has started practicing this, and they are creating a daily walking habit. Because when you say I walked 3 minutes today and 4 minutes the following day, after 3 days, you can start saying, like, I'm walking daily. I'm walking every day on the treadmill. Every day I'm getting on the treadmill and I'm walking for a little bit. It doesn't matter how many minutes. And of course, that eventually we want to increase that number, and it can be done in a gradual way, bit by bit. Sometimes it's not realistic or it's not feasible to go from 0 to 30. We need to start with 3, 4, maybe 3, 4, 5, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 8. And there will be days where we are repeating and then we get to increase. It's like when going to the gym, sometimes we get to increase the weights and we stay at that for a little bit. And then as we get stronger and we're able to increase that again, we stay at that weight, and that counts. And that's important. That's part of the process. And then maybe we increase that a little bit and we continue that process. How you pursue something is just as important as what you are pursuing. If your means are rushed, reactive, or disconnected from your values, the result might not be worth it, or it might not stick. But when you choose aligned action, when you move from clarity and not from fear, the process itself becomes part of your transformation. Every small decision is a rehearsal for the kind of person you want to become. So, yes, goals matter, But so that's the road you walk to get there. Because the most meaningful wins aren't just achievements, they are a reflection of how you showed up moment by moment.
Puedes escuchar Poder Aprender en las principales plataformas de podcast y en YouTube. También te invito a suscribirte al newsletter semanal en poderaprender.com para enterarte de los nuevos episodios del podcast y otras novedades para aprender mejor. En redes sociales puedes buscar este podcast como Poder Aprender. Encontrá todos los links en la descripción. Y si te gusta mucho, si te sirve el contenido del podcast, te invito a dejar una reseña y una calificación de 5 estrellas en Spotify o Apple Podcasts para que estos episodios lleguen a más personas y que más gente pueda aprender mejor. Eso es todo por ahora. Nos vemos en un próximo episodio. Sigan aprendiendo y acuérdense de practicar bien.